This is week 195 of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I'm Belokur, reporting to you from Kyiv, and I'll be taking you through the top stories from Ukraine this week. Now, before we go into the wild new U.S. peace plan for Ukraine, I want to draw your attention to a tragic event that was easy to miss this week: a devastating Russian attack on the city of Ternopil. Ternopil is a city in western Ukraine, located more than 300 miles from any front line. It lies on a longitude almost as far west as European cities like Bucharest, Vilnius, and Helsinki. Overnight on Wednesday, Russia targeted the city, destroying an apartment building and killing 33 people, including 6 children. After 4 days of non-stop rescue operations, 6 people, among them a child, are still missing. On weeks like this, when shocking footage of immense human suffering is released by Ukraine's first responders, proposals to offer Russia amnesty and welcome it back into global diplomacy as part of a peace agreement feel especially surreal. But more on that in the next segment. The United States has proposed yet another plan for peace, and it tilts heavily in Russia's favor, with no way to reconcile Ukraine's stated terms. The new 28-point peace framework is reportedly the brainchild of Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and Russian envoy Kirill Dmitriev, and stipulates Ukraine relinquishing territory and reducing the size of its military, among other capitulations. There's no evidence that this proposal will be a breakthrough, as none before it have been, but its timing really couldn't be worse. Ukraine is facing crises from all sides, and the Trump administration has set this coming Thursday as the deadline for Kyiv to accept the plan or potentially lose the support of its most powerful ally. The plan was reportedly cooked up by Witkoff and Dmitriev in secret meetings, and Dmitriev claims that the Russian position is really being heard within its strategies. The plan was presented to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and its contents leaked to the media in the final days of this week. Those contents included stipulations that Ukraine give up the entirety of its Donbas region, including the parts not currently occupied by Russia. Under the plan, Ukrainian forces would withdraw from these remaining areas, which would then be designated as a demilitarized zone. And then that territory would be internationally recognized as belonging to Russia, although Russian troops would be hypothetically prohibited from entering that zone. Under the proposed framework, the Ukrainian army would be capped at 600,000. Significantly less than what it is now, and Kyiv would have to abandon its NATO aspirations and agree to not host any foreign troops on its land. And Russia's control over Crimea and Donbas would be officially recognized by the United States. And what is Moscow, the aggressor state who unleashed this war in the first place, expected to do under this plan to ensure peace? It's expected to promise not to reattack Ukraine or to attack Europe, and reflect that in the Russian law, the same law that has been bent time and again whenever Vladimir Putin has needed it throughout his 20 years in power. So, in short, it's everything Russia has wanted and demanded since day one of the negotiations, and exactly the conditions that would make it easy for Moscow to resume its aggression, something Ukraine has been fearing and warning about this whole year. As Ukrainians were processing this leaked plan that ultimately demands Ukraine's capitulation, media reports began to emerge claiming that Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council Secretary, Rustem Umerov, had revised the plan and approved most of its points during his trip to the U.S. According to the Wall Street Journal, Umerov also allegedly altered one of the clauses that could otherwise lead to investigations of wartime corruption in Ukraine. A timely issue, as we'll get into later. Umerov denied that he had either approved or manipulated any of the clauses, but as Ukraine is simultaneously dealing with the largest corruption scandal in years, Fears of betrayal have risen high after this allegation. Whether Umerov approved the plan or not, or whether he was negotiating on Zelensky's behalf, trying to protect himself, or whether all of it is untrue, that remains to be seen. Regardless, Ukraine is facing a difficult week of negotiations ahead. In an address on Friday, President Zelensky said Ukraine may soon face an extremely difficult choice, either the loss of dignity or the risk of losing a key partner. Either 28 complicated points or the hardest winter yet, and the risks that follow. It may seem like just another push for negotiations from the US, something we've seen time and again this year, but the timing, combined with Washington's unusual impatience, even by its own standards, sets the stage for much higher stakes this time. This noxious new peace proposal comes as Russia is pressing ahead across the front line. Ukrainian energy infrastructure is battered ahead of winter, and President Zelensky is facing a firestorm at home. Ukraine is undeniably in a vulnerable position, and Russia and the US are capitalizing on that. In what proved to be a successful strategy before, Zelensky has turned to European support to try to again sway Trump. During negotiations in Switzerland, the Ukrainian and American delegations will be joined by representatives of the United Kingdom, Germany, and France, whose leaders have already pushed back against the controversial parts of the plan. As Trump himself said, the offer on the table is not final. Ukraine and Europe will again fight to make this agreement acceptable for them. But as we know all too well, whatever is acceptable for Ukraine is a non-starter for Russia, and unless the West, together with Ukraine, applies more pressure on Moscow on the battlefield and at home, that is unlikely to change. It's clear that the US administration still wants to say that they ended Russia's war, maybe seeking a win now more than ever, as Trump's second term becomes increasingly mired in controversy. And it's equally clear that Ukraine's peaceful future is not its priority. It remains to be seen how far Washington is ready to go this time for Trump to finally be able to score his peacemaker points. The Kyiv Independent celebrated a milestone last week. It's been exactly 4 years since our founding. So on this occasion, we launched a birthday campaign with the goal of getting to 25,000 members before the end of 2025. And we are closing in on that final 1,000, and you could be the one to take us over the line. So for as little as $5, your money goes directly towards our journalism, from trips to the front lines to shows like the ones you're watching right now. If you'd like to help us celebrate our birthday and prepare for many more to come, there will be a link to our membership page in the description below. I'd also like to thank everyone who donates directly via YouTube. We see you, and we appreciate you. As I said, the drama around peace negotiations is playing out in tandem with what officials and analysts are calling the biggest wartime corruption scandal of Zelensky's presidency. The heart of the scandal is a corruption probe into the nuclear energy sector that has already triggered the dismissal of ministers, a widening parliamentary revolt, and intensifying scrutiny of the president's leadership and inner circle, particularly his long controversial chief of staff, Andriy Yermak. So, to recap very quickly from last week, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, known as NABU, announced that after 15 months of investigation, it had uncovered a scheme in state-run energy procurement. And, according to NABU, suppliers to a state-owned nuclear company were being forced to pay bribes in order to maintain their vendor status. The total implicated value of the scheme is estimated at around $100 million. The ringleader of the scheme was a close business associate of the president, who fled abroad before his arrest warrant was served. 2 serving ministers submitted resignations after being named in association with the case, and both were formally dismissed on Wednesday. On the same day, lawmakers from Zelensky's ruling Servant of the People Party broke ranks, with around 10 of them signing an open letter calling for the formation of a national unity government with opposition participation, citing the scandal as evidence of dramatically weakened trust in the executive. Amid these developments, one source of sharp criticism has been Andriy Yermak. As head of the presidential office, Yermak is Zelensky's right-hand man, responsible for domestic policy, oversight of key state institutions, and coordinating between the presidency, the cabinet, and the parliament. He's long been a controversial figure, yielding an unprecedented level of power. While Yermak has not been formally accused of wrongdoing in the scandal, some point to his oversight of both appointments and procurement processes in energy, law enforcement, and state-owned companies. Critics argue that such a large-scale corruption scheme could not have been pulled off without Yermak's knowledge and thus at least tacit approval. As Daria Kalenyuk of the Anti-Corruption Action Center put it, he is so influential and so deep in so many issues inside the country that it is impossible for such a large-scale corruption scheme to operate without his deep knowledge and understanding. So, in short, there's no scenario where this scandal doesn't make Yermak look incompetent at best and criminal at worst. Inside the parliament, and even within Zelensky's own party, doubt is being openly voiced about whether Yermak can remain in his position. Some deputies say that his departure would help calm the agitation around the scandal. For Zelensky, dismissing Yermak could be seen as taking responsibility and addressing society's concerns, but keeping him may continue to fuel perceptions of patronage and impunity. But it can't be overstated how much of a blow the events of recent weeks, and by extension, the events of this year, have had on Zelensky's reputation at home. As things deteriorate for Ukraine on multiple fronts, both literally and figuratively, pressure is mounting for the president to make radical change in how he governs the country. On Thursday night, Zelensky held a meeting with his party members, where he was expected to address the criticism and calls for Yermak's removal from office. According to lawmakers present, Zelensky's position became clear before he even started talking, as he showed up accompanied by none other than Yermak himself. "Everything stays as it is, no changes," as one of the lawmakers summarized to us. The scandal, paired with pressure from the United States to capitulate to Russia's demands, make for a severe blow to morale for Ukrainians, who are facing yet another winter of blackouts, air attacks, and a deterioration on the front line, as the full-scale war closes in on its 4th year. Soldiers are fighting on the front lines for a democratic future free from Russian aggression, one that requires both territorial integrity and governance without corruption. For our North American supporters, I have a quick announcement. The Kyiv Independent will be holding its first ever live event in New York City, where members of our team will share stories from the life of a newsroom in times of war. The program will include personal accounts by our staff, visual storytelling, and a silent auction whose proceeds will go towards supporting the work of our War Crimes Investigations Unit. You can learn more and reserve a spot at the link in the description below.
Hi, my name is Katerina Denisova. I am a Kyiv Independent reporter with the National Desk, and over the past week we received multiple questions regarding the corruption in Ukraine in light of the recent major scandal, so I'm here to answer a couple of them. So the first question from our member is, why is Ukraine considered more corrupt than other countries? And the second question from another member is, how long before the people take to the streets again and demand real changes at the top? First of all, I want to say that corruption exists in every country, and Ukraine is not the most corrupt one, including among the EU candidate states, according to the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index. But of course, there is no denying an excuse that corruption is a major challenge for Ukraine. But what is more important here, as for me, that Ukrainians themselves appear to be the ones criticizing and raising this issue most actively. For example, multiple polls conducted in recent years show that Ukrainians consider corruption to be the second biggest problem for the country after Russia's war. And as you could see during the summer protests, Ukrainians are ready to take to the streets, and defend the anti-corruption institutions, to make sure that they can hold accountable the high-profile officials and actually to battle this tumor. And as for me, this very narrative that Ukraine is the most corrupt country in the world, it's largely generalized and is often fueled by the Russian propaganda and some populistic politicians abroad. And this narrative, it actually overlooks all the efforts, reforms, and progress that Ukraine has made fighting corruption over the past decade. So the fact that unfortunately we have this frustrating corruption scandal now is actually a good sign, on the other hand, because it means that the anti-corruption institutions work, and it's a good sign because such investigations are possible even during the full-scale war. As for the second question, yes, Ukrainians do have a tradition of taking to the streets sometimes. It is not a hobby, but it is a response to the injustice and a reminder to those in power that they are temporary in their positions and that the only source of authority in Ukraine is the Ukrainian people, according to the constitution. And when Ukrainians see that whoever is in power, that government, president, or anyone else takes the wrong path, they go out and protest. And as for the recent scandal, I think that President Volodymyr Zelensky's reaction was quite fast, and he publicly signaled that he took the right side this time. But at the same time, Ukrainians now are frustrated because his response was restrained toward his allies and towards some officials who surround him and who are allegedly implicated in this corruption scheme. And despite criticism and demands to get rid of these people, Zelensky has not done so yet. So I think that the likelihood that Ukrainians can protest again is high. But at the same time, there is no deadline for this, and Zelensky still has a chance to get rid of some people who surround him, especially now when Russia and the US are weaponizing this corruption scandal. So the Ukrainians won't tolerate the power grab of those people who surround Zelensky, I think so. And if you want me and my colleagues to continue follow this topic and to cover it, we will be thankful if you can support us so that we can continue to do so.
That's all for this week. We'll be back next Sunday with more news from Ukraine. If you appreciated this video, please consider becoming a member of the Kyiv Independent community. It's thanks to viewers like you that we can do this work, and we're so grateful for your support. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.